Okay, so you want to sell ice. Not diamonds. Not gasoline. Not some complicated piece of technology. Ice. You take water, freeze it, put it inside a plastic bag, and somehow convince someone to hand you a few dollars for something they could technically make in their own freezer for almost nothing. And here's the strange part. At a gas station, the ice sitting next to the checkout counter can sometimes be a better business than the gasoline sitting underneath the entire property. Because gas stations make a lot of money moving fuel. But fuel is expensive to buy, expensive to store, heavily regulated, and often sold with razor-thin margins. Ice is different. The raw ingredient is basically free. The product doesn't expire in the traditional sense, and when somebody needs it, they usually need it right now. So how does a $3 or $5 bag of frozen water actually make money? And why would a gas station dedicate valuable space, electricity, freezer capacity, and delivery logistics to something that looks almost worthless? Well, by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how the economics of gas station ice works, what a typical bag can cost to produce and distribute, why the freezer outside the store is positioned exactly where it is, how much money can potentially be made on each bag, and why ice is one of those weird little products where convenience completely changes the economics. Let's start with the obvious question. Why would anyone buy ice at a gas station? Because if you think about it, the customer already has a freezer. They could fill some trays, wait a few hours, and make ice at home. But that's not how people actually use gas station ice. They're going camping. They're heading to the beach. They're having a barbecue. They're going fishing. They're driving to a lake. They're filling a cooler. Maybe they're hosting a party and suddenly realize they need another 20 pounds of ice. And that last situation is where the economics gets interesting. Nobody wants to spend 3 hours making ice at home. They want a giant bag right now. That's the product. Not frozen water. Instant availability. And convenience is where the price starts moving away from the cost. Imagine you're driving down a highway on a hot Saturday afternoon. Your cooler is full of drinks. The sun is beating down. You pull into a gas station. You fill the car. You walk inside. And right next to the entrance is a giant freezer. Inside are bags of ice. 10 pounds. 20 pounds. Maybe 40 pounds. You don't stop to calculate the cost of freezing 1 kilogram of water. You look at the price. Maybe it's $3. Maybe $5. And you buy it. Because at that moment, the alternative isn't really make ice at home. The alternative is continue driving without ice. And that's a completely different comparison. This is one of the oldest tricks in retail economics. The price of something isn't determined only by how much it costs to produce. It's also determined by how badly you want it, how quickly you need it, and how easy the alternatives are. And ice has an unusually high convenience factor. Now let's look at the actual economics. Suppose you're selling a standard 10 pound bag of ice. The retail price might vary significantly by market and store, but let's use $3 as a simple example. At first, that sounds ridiculous. 10 pounds of frozen water for $3? But the water isn't the only cost. You need a machine. You need electricity. You need purified or treated water. You need bags. You need labels. You need packaging equipment. You need storage space. You need freezers. You need labor. You need transportation. And you need a supply chain capable of keeping that ice frozen until the customer buys it. So let's imagine a dedicated commercial ice producer. The water going into the machine might represent only a tiny fraction of the final retail price. The real costs are energy, equipment, packaging, labor, distribution, and refrigeration. For a simplified 10 pound bag, imagine the producer's manufacturing and packaging cost comes to somewhere around 40 to 70 cents, depending on scale, equipment efficiency, energy prices, packaging, and local operating costs. Then distribution adds another layer. The ice has to get from the production facility to the gas station, and unlike almost every other grocery product, ice has a special problem. You can't just leave it sitting in a warehouse at room temperature. It melts. So transportation and storage have to maintain the cold chain. Let's use another 20 to 40 cents as an illustrative distribution and handling cost. Now, our hypothetical all-in cost to get a bag into the store might be around 60 cents to $1.10. Again, this is an illustrative model rather than a universal industry cost. A massive producer serving nearby locations could be more efficient. A small producer delivering long distances could be much more expensive. But let's use $1 as our simple midpoint. Now imagine that gas station sells that bag for $3. That leaves roughly $2 before accounting for the retailer's broader overhead and any additional costs. And suddenly, the economics look very different. The gas station isn't selling water. It's selling a product with a potentially attractive gross margin. But here's the really interesting part. The gas station doesn't necessarily have to manufacture the ice itself. In many markets, specialized ice companies handle production and distribution. The gas station simply provides the freezer and the retail location. This is a powerful business model because the gas station doesn't need to become an ice factory. It just needs to become the place where the customer finds the ice. And this is where location becomes incredibly valuable. A supermarket might sell the same bag of ice. A warehouse club might sell it even cheaper. A convenience store might charge more. Why? Because customers aren't shopping for the cheapest possible ice. They're shopping for the ice that's closest to where they are. And gas stations have one enormous advantage. They're everywhere. They sit on highways. They sit near lakes. They sit near campgrounds. They sit near beaches. They sit at intersections. And they're open early, late, and often 24 hours a day. That means the freezer isn't just holding inventory. It's positioned inside a massive network of convenience. And this is where something surprisingly important happens. The gas station can sell the same basic product at a premium simply because the customer is already there. Think about the economics of the entire visit. You pull in because you need gas. Then you see the ice. Maybe you need drinks. Then snacks. Then coffee. Maybe windshield washer fluid. Maybe a lottery ticket. The ice isn't necessarily the biggest profit generator by itself. It can also be part of the larger convenience store ecosystem. And that ecosystem is incredibly important. Because fuel brings customers onto the property. Once they're there, the store has an opportunity to sell them higher margin products. This is why a gas station isn't really just a gas station. It's a traffic funnel. Millions of vehicles pass by. Some stop for fuel. Some stop for food. Some stop for drinks. And some realize they need a giant bag of ice. The economics of ice, therefore, depend on something much bigger than frozen water: foot traffic. Now here's another interesting question. Why are so many ice freezers outside? Because that's not an accident. Put the ice freezer deep inside the store, and you create friction. The customer has to walk inside, find the product, carry a giant frozen bag through the store, then stand in line. But put the freezer outside, near the parking area, and the customer can pull up, open the freezer, grab a bag, and bring it straight to the car. The transaction becomes almost frictionless. And when the product is heavy, bulky, wet, and inconvenient to carry, reducing those extra steps matters. This is retail psychology disguised as freezer placement. The same principle explains why ice is often positioned near gas stations, parking lots, and entrances. The easier the product is to buy, the more likely the customer is to buy it. The easier the product is to buy, the more likely the customer is to buy it. Now let's talk about something that makes the economics even stranger. Ice is one of the few products where your inventory is literally disappearing. A loaf of bread doesn't melt. A bag of chips doesn't evaporate. A bottle of soda doesn't slowly turn into a puddle. Ice does. And that creates a problem called shrink. If you produce too much ice, some of it melts. If you stock too little, you run out when demand is highest. So inventory management becomes extremely important, and demand is highly seasonal. A hot summer weekend can be completely different from a freezing Tuesday in January. A holiday weekend can cause demand to explode. Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, summer weekends, major sporting events, fishing tournaments, camping season. These moments can create huge spikes in ice demand. And that's why the best ice businesses aren't just manufacturing frozen water, they're forecasting weather. They're forecasting traffic. They're forecasting holidays. They're forecasting human behavior. Imagine two scenarios. It's Tuesday morning in February. Temperature, 35 degrees. Traffic, normal. Ice demand, low. Now it's Saturday afternoon in July. Temperature, 95 degrees. Millions of people are driving to beaches, lakes, parks, and barbecues. Suddenly, the same freezer can become extremely valuable, and this is why weather can become an economic variable for the ice industry. One hot weekend can sell through inventory that might normally take much longer to move. But there's another hidden cost. The freezer itself. A commercial ice freezer isn't free. It costs money to buy. It consumes electricity. It requires maintenance. It takes up valuable space. And depending on the arrangement, the gas station may own it, lease it, or have it provided by the ice supplier. That means the economics of the freezer have to work too. Suppose the freezer holds 100 bags. If each bag generates $2 of gross profit for the retailer, selling the entire freezer represents $200 of gross profit. Do that several times a week during peak season, and suddenly the freezer becomes a productive piece of real estate. And this is one of the most important ideas in retail. Space has an opportunity cost. Every square foot occupied by an ice freezer could theoretically be used for something else. But because ice is bulky, and customers often buy it for immediate use, the outdoor space can be highly productive. Now imagine a gas station with 10 locations. Each location sells 100 bags of ice per week during the summer. That's 1,000 bags. If the retailer's gross profit averages $2 per bag, that's $2,000 of gross profit per week across the network. Over a 20-week peak season, that's roughly $40,000. And that's from a product most people barely think about. Scale it across hundreds or thousands of locations, and the numbers become much more meaningful. But there's a catch. Not every location sells 100 bags a week. Some sell far more. Some sell far less. A station next to a lake might sell enormous volumes. A station in an office district might barely sell any. So location determines the economics. And that's why ice companies carefully plan distribution routes. Because remember, they're transporting a product that is mostly water. You're essentially paying a truck to move frozen water around. That's not cheap. If a supplier delivers one bag to a location that's only a few miles away, the logistics can work. If the supplier has to drive a long distance for a tiny order, the economics deteriorate quickly. This creates an interesting scale advantage. A supplier serving hundreds of stores in the same region can build efficient delivery routes. One truck can make multiple stops. The driver can replenish several freezers. The production plant can operate at high capacity. The more efficiently the network operates, the lower the cost per bag can become. And that's where a seemingly boring product becomes a serious logistics business. Production, packaging, freezing, warehousing, routing, delivery, freezer placement, retail pricing, weather forecasting, demand forecasting. Every piece affects the final margin. And this is why the ice business is much more sophisticated than it looks. Now, there's another reason ice can be attractive. It doesn't require customers to understand a brand very deeply. If you're buying a luxury watch, branding matters enormously. If you're buying a smartphone, specifications matter. If you're buying ice for a cooler, the decision is much simpler. Is it frozen? Is the bag intact? Is it available? Is the price reasonable? That's about it. This makes ice a relatively simple impulse and convenience purchase. And simple purchases can move very quickly, but the business still isn't guaranteed. A supplier can lose money if energy costs rise. A retailer can lose money if ice melts before being sold. A delivery route can become inefficient. A freezer can break. A competitor can undercut prices. A heat wave can increase demand, but also create supply shortages. And if you're producing ice yourself, the machinery represents a significant upfront investment. This is where the business separates the professional operators from everyone else. The winners aren't necessarily the people who make the cheapest ice. They're the people who can produce it cheaply, keep it frozen, move it efficiently, and put it exactly where demand appears. That's the entire game. And perhaps the most interesting part is that the customer never sees any of it. They see a plastic bag. They pay a few dollars. They throw it into a cooler. And that's the end of the transaction. But behind that bag is an entire economic chain. Water enters a production facility. Machines freeze it. Equipment packages it. Workers or automated systems prepare it. Trucks distribute it. Freezers preserve it. Retailers display it. And finally, a customer pays a premium because they don't want to wait 6 hours for their home freezer to do the same job. That's the economics of convenience. And it appears everywhere. Coffee, fast food, airport snacks, bottled water, gas station, and ice. The raw material can be cheap. The manufacturing process can be simple. But if you put the product in exactly the right place, at exactly the right time, you can create a surprisingly valuable business. So the next time you stop at a gas station on a hot summer day and see that giant freezer sitting outside the store, don't just see a bag of ice. See a tiny economic machine. The water is cheap. The electricity isn't. The plastic is cheap. The logistics aren't. The product is simple. The supply chain isn't. And the margin isn't really created by freezing water. It's created by getting something heavy, inconvenient, and urgently needed into the customer's hands at exactly the moment they want it. Because in business, sometimes the most profitable product isn't the one people can't live without. It's the one people don't want to live without right now. And on a 9-5 Saturday afternoon, a $3 bag of frozen water can suddenly look like one of the smartest products in the entire gas station.